you searching for fulfillment? Discover true happiness. Stay tuned to Shalom World.
Today, the world's biggest corporates joined their hands, targeted the kids and youth. It's an alien world that terrifies the parents. Gaming addiction is real and is so widespread.
Murder attempt cases are reported in Australia. Cho has declared it as a disease. More and more parents are turning to psychiatrists to help their children to get on bad impact of online game addiction.
It all started really beginning when I began playing online games. There were times where I was playing video games 16 hours a day. Being someone who didn't have many friends and didn't really interact with people in the real world, I really got into this virtual world. When I got home, all I wanted to do was play games, started drinking alcohol, a time where I didn't really have the ability to stop myself. My life kind of began when we moved to Queensland. The most important things that I can remember. When I was young, I was quite introverted and found it very difficult to make any friends. My family was always part of the Catholic religion, and we were able to, go to church every week and build up relationships within the community. And so when I was growing up, I was always feeling a little bit different to people, because not only because of my beliefs, but because of just the way that I acted and the difference between myself and other people. When I was growing up, I really didn't make many friends at all. It's throughout primary school, high school, and as I said, felt like it was all these things about myself, and I was comparing myself to other people through that. It made it very difficult to build any relationships with people. As I said, I was quite introverted, so I had difficulty talking to people in general. So it was a little bit lonely at that time. I always grew up with games. I feel like most kids these days really do enjoy or partake in video games, and I was able to go to university because of how well I did. I'd say it was actually when I started university that it really started getting a bit worse. I started university with these friends who got me into World of Warcraft, and I started to get quite hooked. University is a very different sort of landscape. It's not as structured as high school, so I didn't have to go every single day. Even if I didn't want to go at all, I wouldn't have to go. It all started really beginning when I began playing online games. There's a very different feel to an online game compared to the games that really started back in when you're playing by yourself, or maybe some friends might come over and you play with them. It was very different. Being someone who didn't have many friends and didn't really interact with people in the real world, I really got into this virtual world. Although I had my friends in the real world who were playing these games with me, it got to a point where I wasn't really interacting with those people as much, and I was interacting more with the people who were within the game that I'd never actually met in real life. There were times where I was playing video games 16 hours a day because I was part of a group who were very competitive and really wanted to win. So this was me when I was playing quite a lot. I had cut myself out from the world and had been quite isolated. I would play with many people. Never realised this time what I was doing was as bad as it was. I think in my heart there was still something saying to me that there was something, but I just never knew. I would play for about 16 hours a day at the worst of it. Normal ways of interacting and social skills and interpersonal skills, it's all through very antisocial means that you communicate. Aggression, even being too passive where you're not really speaking much. It really became something that was almost like a prison where I couldn't really go anywhere, and I felt like even if I did, there would be nothing that I could do. And this whole time I was drinking a lot, and I think the drinking felt like it was necessary at the time because it was stimulating the conversation. Otherwise, sometimes it would even get boring. During the time I was at home with my parents, obviously they were seeing me fall into this trap of removing myself from the world. And my parents are very, they're very religious people, and they're very good at understanding how the world interacts with God and the importance of having ambition and a striving towards God and heaven and the progression of that in the world. And they could very obviously see that while I was playing games, I was not progressing. I was stagnant, which I myself realised as well. I was being very selfish at the time. I really as I said, it was a very competitive environment. I just wanted to win. I wanted to do my best. I wanted to prove to my parents that I was good enough to make a life out of what I was doing. So it just drove me further and further away from the relationship that we had. And that led me to eventually move out from home with some friends who were definitely not good influences on me. It brought me back into worse, because it was such a bad environment, into worse states. So I was taking up drinking, I was playing games again, not quite as long, but 10 to 12 hours, and it really became a rock bottom for me at the time. After a while, my friends invited me to this house party where we were all a bit drunk. We went out there and the people there, it was small. There were, a few girls there who were also the influence of my friends being there. The build up to this point all let go of a few things and ideas that were ingrained in me from childhood that, as I said, I'd let go. And it was at a point where there was this girl who was a little bit interested, and I'd let, a little bit of dancing and that go on. And in my mind, I remembered that how important to me it was not to go any further. And I felt like it was the time where God really wanted me to realise that I still felt like I'd held on to the values in my life, and I knew what was good and what was bad still. During the games, I would almost start questioning my friends as to, well, do you think that we should maybe do something more social? Slowly, I would let go a bit of the alcohol and a bit of the games, and I actually built up a bit of a group with my friends in the real world so that we could do something that wasn't just video games. They were very resistant to it after a while. Initially, it was a good feeling because we all felt like we could, chat like we were in the games and do things because it was still a game. But I was really pushing it hard and saying to my friends, well, is this something that we want to do forever? Is this something we need to integrate into the real world more? And why don't we see each other enough? Why is it that we always have to be behind a video game screen? And they became angry at it. They weren't happy, and it led to a pretty big fight where my friends basically split up. And at that time, I called my dad, and we had a bit of a conversation about, what was happening. He came over for a little while, and we had a chat, and we went out to a movie. During that time, because I was questioning, I started talking more to Dad, and would pass texts along, make more phone calls than we were at the start of me moving out. And it was one day when we organised a get-together after having a phone call, where I talked to Dad a bit about what was happening, and that my friends and I weren't really getting along anymore, that I was feeling that I needed to go back and start doing things a bit better, like take a few steps back from where I'd been and really reevaluate the way that I looked at the world and what I was doing. And so Dad suggested that, I come back and live with them again. And after maybe a couple of weeks, when the lease had ended, I went back to my parents. And as I said at the time, I gained a lot of weight. So, my mum and dad not only helping me reevaluate morally what I was doing, also helped me physically and really brought me back into the world. And it was hard, but I eventually, lost a fair bit of weight through dieting and started really being able to focus more on myself and what I needed to do. And what the next step was. So I had finished my degree after this point and was working full-time. I think I was talking to some people at the time who were guiding me a bit more spiritually. After the conversation with my dad, I came back home and I was able to start work on improving myself again and finding more about the values and morals that I really needed to integrate in my life to become this person that I was starting to grow into. And it was a few years beforehand, my parents had introduced me to a priest who started, I guess, giving me a bit of guidance and brought me into a youth group. And even then, I was still very into the games and not willing to change. So it wasn't something that I was ready at the time to go into. But then in this new phase of my life where I was ready to improve, I knew that I had that to fall back onto. And so I did. And after moving back home, I went back to church and I was going every week, and it helped me to start opening myself up more to going back to youth group as well. I think I remember I still felt guilty about leaving in the first place because I knew that it was something very selfish that I did that led me to a really bad place. So I wasn't sure if I was able to approach these people again. And I guess I was still comparing myself a bit to them because I felt like I'd been a failure at the time. So slowly, I was able to build myself up through going to Mass every week and listening as intently as I could to what God was calling me to do. And God gave me the courage to go back, and I was able to start building back my physical, confidence and, lost a fair bit of weight, I was able to build up these better interpersonal relationships. More and more I was seeking to learn, and I was reading the Bible, learning as much as I could. I was very blessed to have these people around me, helping me, bringing me up. Seeking of knowledge of God, that I was introduced by a priest to the book of St. Augustine's Confessions. And in that book, I was able to realise that although I'd made these mistakes and done wrong, it wasn't what defined me as a person. It was the imperfectness that is caused by sin that, once taken away, I was able to become what God intended me to be. This book helped me on my journey, and it helped me find the way that Jesus wanted me to act and who I was to be as a person. It was thanks to Jesus through this book I was able to find out just how much I could do in this world. Too long was I stuck inside a virtual world, and Jesus was able to free me. I was able to go to the real world. And it was in this book that I learnt just how valuable my own personality and my own self was to Jesus. I think I learnt a lot about my value and not to compare myself to other people. I hope now that I'm able to, now that I'm this kind of person, able to follow all the things that Jesus wants me to do. I think that now that I've improved in many areas of my life, I'm able to fulfill the plan that Jesus wants for me. And I'm really grateful that I was able to become who I am now. And after reading the St. Augustine's Confessions, it was Jesus through this book that helped me to uninstall my games and become someone who was able to integrate with the real world. It was the grace of God and Jesus working through all these things that led me to such a great point in my life where I'm able to be with God and learn more about God. It was something that I could never do by myself. I needed Jesus in my life to be able to do anything. And because without him, I was just falling into a never-ending hole of darkness. And Jesus just brought light into everything that I did and made me into such a more integrated person who is able to do things that I never thought that I could, because they're all through Jesus. And I'm very excited for my future because of what Jesus has done for me. And I can't wait to see what more comes out of it. I was able to do even better with my physical activity. I started taking up sports and going to the gym. I now very committed to my studies, and I'm doing something that I really love. I was, when I was playing games, aggressive, depressed. I'm a free person who is able to do and act as God wants me to act and do. I don't have to be constrained to this virtual world anymore. I was able to uninstall all the games that had held me down for so long. And finally become at peace with who I am as a person and who I am within God's image. It was such a freeing experience. I was able to do so much better when it came to my exercise. I took up sports and go to the gym now. I'm able to have so much more time to study and focus on my goals. I'm doing a degree now that really work hard on and have ambition towards my goals. And my relationships are so much better. I'm able constantly making more and more friends and being able to build on the relationships I already have and build deeper relationships through God. The best part about it as well is my parents and I and my family are all in such a good relationship now that, we're freer to talk, and we know that we can trust each other through God, and all this being saved by the word that Jesus brought in the gospel was truly freeing. And the people that they were able to integrate all this knowledge that Jesus gave us opened up such a good way of living through life and understanding God's intention when He created us in our bodies. And it's given me so much peace knowing that I no longer have to compare myself to people. I no longer have to be this introverted person who's worried about what I say. And I can be who God wanted me to be.
A lot of talk in our church today about the new evangelisation, and we might ask, well, what's new about the new evangelisation? One thing that's new is that we're trying to renew the faith in people who should already be Catholic, should already be Christian. Individuals, families, communities, whole cultures that need to rediscover the gospel. And so what's new is that they're getting a new shot in the arm of faith, of evangelisation. But another thing that's new about it is the way that we do that. And the new media and groups like Shalom World TV are very important for bringing the gospel anew to our cultures, to our families, to each of us individually. And so I encourage all the viewers of Shalom World TV, and I encourage Shalom World TV themselves to keep up the good work, to keep watching this channel and to keep up the good work of presenting the Catholic faith to our world today.